Hi, this is IK. Welcome to where does the initial state come from? Again, where does the initial state come from? This is a React application. Component read. Initial state of this component is here. It means state posts would be empty array. State show edit form would be false. State update ID would be empty. State is loading will be true. Again, repeat. Empty array, false, empty update ID, true. Empty array, false, empty, true for state. And we will see that in console log. What happened after initial state? What means initial state? Initial state is first rendering of component. First rendering of component is always complete rendering and must have initial state. Without initial state is like we didn't declare variable and want to use variable. All this for state, for variable, is declaration. And in a second rendering, third rendering, fourth, any other rendering, when we have interaction, etc., declaring variable exists, and we can, in next rendering, manipulate with it. After this rendering, first rendering, what happened? Happened did mount component. And that event did mount component exists that we can call use effect hook, and we can inside of that use effect hook, we can write what we want, manipulation with the data, and also we can write we can call function what we want. In this situation, we call function fetch post. Here it is. Here is use effect, and we call use effect must have two parameters. First parameter is always a function, is always arrow function, not calling function, but complete function. It is arrow function. And in the body of that arrow function, we have a fetch post, this fetch post. And when we look what that function do, it function get data from mock server, use axios.get method to get data from mock server. And if all is okay, it is asynchronous process, because of that here is asynchronous. And here is a wait word for simplest syntax of asynchronous processes. syntax is like it is synchronized. Because of that, async await to keyword. Okay, in any case, if all is okay, we have response data, because server communicate, our browser and server communicate with request response. Browser request, server response, and here browser request get, response server response data, and part of that response there is data, and that data is our array from a mock server, array of post, and we declare here a constant posts. We declare here same name because we have initial value of post, and now we here again we must declare in this function we must declare, but we give same name, and okay, never mind. It can be any name. Never mind, because it is important that the data would be in that variable post, and that variable post coming here as parameter can be any name, and after that set post is a function for immutable update, and this variable, never mind how we call it, would be arrays, what coming from server, and set post immutable update our state post. This would be immutable update posts our post, because we have here we declare all that here. It is the structured assignment. All is declared here. And set posts always update posts. This is temporarily variable. Temporarily variable only for this place here. And this is way how coming, this is way how initial state coming, here it is, initial state, and after that initial state, we have other states until we don't get Axios get data, and we can look at this data. Interesting that here we will see three states. It is initial state. We will see initial state. After that, when component did mount, activate use effect and activate fetch post. In that fetch post, we have set is loading equal true. It is before request, Axios get data request, and it is immutable change of set is loading. Set is loading, here it is, was, must be false. Initial state must be false because nothing loading. But when happen fetch post, that moment after component did mount, activation of use effect and fetch post, we have this process, and in that process, set is loading coming through. That moment, in this moment, after this statement, we have automatically rendering again our component, second time rendering, because rendering, reason for a rendering is change state. Set is loading is state, and here is a change of state, and we activate rendering. And we will see in F12 in console, we will see second initial state. It is not initial state, it is a second state, and it will be post empty array, show edit form false, update ID nothing, is loading false, is loading true. It would be second rendering, after second rendering. And our function go ahead. Here we have, here is the rendering started and rendering go, but after this rendering, we have request, asynchronous request, Axios get, and if all is okay, we have this variable full of data, it is array, and that variable coming here in parameter of set post. In this moment, we change post. And after this moment, we have rendering, but it would be third. But this time, waiting for this also change of state. And we have these two together, reason for re-rendering third times. We have three rendering. First, initial rendering, and after fetch post, calling, use effect calling fetch post, it is reason for two rendering. And after third rendering, in this third rendering, we see set is loading false, and we see post what coming from mock server. We see the list. When a list coming, we handle that list in return. Here it is, always by map, always by method map. Our list, our data is in array format have method map, and always by method map we share that information in JavaScript extension, like here. Every field of every post coming where we want in structure of HTML. And here is sharing that fields of any post. Every post, there is a field, post ID, post heading, post blog. And we sort it in cell of table where we want. And it would be repeat like a loop for every post. And we will see all our posts. It is where does the initial state come from? Where does the initial state come from in this React application? Come from, concretely here, I look at only one component. It is come from, here it is This state, it is initial state. It is in first rendering. But after that, we see that we access server and get data from server, from a mock server. But initial state was it, and we have second, and in third rendering we see post. When post coming like that from remote server, that our state post can go on child like props. But if component is not child, for example, of read, or not child of app, root component, etc., we can repeat Axios get request to central, to mock server. It means that, for example, theoretically, every component can use effect and fetch inside that, fetch if need, yeah, fetch post from a mock server. If every component, there is a reason for that, not child of any other. And now, next example is React Redux application. Redux coming here for simplicity in a big application with a lot of component. Where we have 2-3 components, it is not important that we use fetch post from a mock server for every component, for example. But when we have 100 components, 1,000 components, it is no practical. It is waste, resource waste, a lot of communication with server. And because of that, we have Redux, and Redux take fetch post from mock server, get data from mock server, and all component all component is in React can access that state by use selector, like subscribers can subscribe to that state and use selector, and practically we can have only one contact with server, get data, get our, for example, now state post, get to state in Redux store, and all other manipulation, all other data flow go by use selector in concretely component. Let's go to see application 454. It is a React Redux application. React Redux application. React Redux application. Here is React Redux. When we have Redux, we have every state. There is initial state. There is a slice, state slice. We have state post and we have post slice. Here we import Redux.js toolkit, It is last version of Redux. But let's go to see flow. At first, because here is initial state, it first must be first rendering, we can say, but it is first rendering of our any component in our application must be initial state, and that initial state is here in post slice. How post slice? How post slice rendering? How post slice? Who call post slice? We know that always must be calling, and calling for all our application. First call is enter website address, and we can go there. When we when we enter website address, first loading index.html. It is somewhere, it is in public, and here it is, index.html. Index.html call index.html. Okay, let's go to index. Index.js. Here it is, index. Here it is, index. And here we have import what we need. Provider coming from React Redux. It is element, React Redux element, provider from package React Redux. Store coming from our app store with we code it, and root component coming here. But concentrate of this provider and store, get down, constant root, create root. Here is connection with the DOM, document object model. And here is, this is important, provider, element provider, what we imported, have store, props store equal our store.js, what we called. And that store.js have import post slice. Here is calling. Index.js is entry point to our React application. And index.js was called from index.html. It means calling, means execution, processing, and complete this index.js processing. And in that process, it is calling for provider element, and this provider element execute. Props here, props store equal our code store. When we look at in store, we will see that store have import store. Here it is. Store has import a post reducers, users reducers, comment reducer, and all coming from post slice state, coming from post slice. Users slice here, it is users reducer. Comment slice, reply slice, here is a lot of reducer, and here is a configuration of state in store. Here we coding store, and the configure store help us create all for us reducers, and here is properties of reducer. Here is reducer posts, post reducer, reducer users, and you see here is import, 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 and here happen here in creation of store, we create initial state for every of these post users reducer, for every of this reducer. Create initial state, because initial state is in Redux store. And it is a state in the Redux store. And it is that state, there is a root state, and there is properties of that root state. And this post reducer, users reducer, all that is separate state. And every that state must have a reducer, because only reducer can change state. Only reducer, here when we have Redux technology, only reducer can immutable update state. How many state? That many reducer. And here it is configuration of state, store and state. And state go with reducer, is connected to, we can say connected to reducer, because reducer, there is a two input. One is a state, that state is what is actually state, and at first it will be initial state, and second input is action, object action. That object action have action type. Object action have two properties: action type, it is string, and payload. It is what coming, it is post, or what coming for user, new user can be if we use add new user, and etc. Comments, etc. Object types and payload. And who bring that object action? It bring dispatch method of store. Store have dispatch listening event in our component, and when we click some button, dispatch all from that form, etc. Dispatch to store. Dispatch to store. What dispatch? Dispatch action creator, and action creator create object store. It is process like this. And go back to index. Index users, index.js. Here we import store. Look at, from App Store. And that import means that we import all what we see on the store. Configuration, complete configuration of Redux store, state, reducer, and provider coming from React Redux, and that React Redux, from React Redux, it means that provider provide Redux to our React application. Provide it is element who, what name said, provider, what provider, it is provider of Redux to our React application, and that provider wrap what happened, wrap all router combination inside, but it is most important that wrap up and wrap all router combination, root combination for our application. And here is the provider clause. In that router combination, we combine component, and we combine what component would be show when we, and what link would be for that. Here is a root, and the links is in the component where we need it, where we need links, where we need it. About router, I prepare for talk about router, last version, router 6, excellent router. And we have router 6, excellent, and the last version, and Redux toolkit, excellent last version of Redux. And all together, React get better and better, simpler and simpler. But the most important is understanding. Understanding for likes, any programming language. It is about initial value in here in this application, React Redux. What we will see when we open concretely post list, we will see the post list. I spoke about post list, post slice. We will see this. In post slice, we look at initial state. When we open posts list.js, this post list.js, we will see, look at use selector, takes from, and first initial state, we will see two posts. And again, we must have initial state, initial first rendering, and after first rendering, we have activation of use selector, because use selector look at any changes in state, and use selector have state, it is initial state, and take it. Take it. State post. Take it, and we see here in post list, we see all posts, and we use map here, map to configure our field of post inside of HTML. Together it is JavaScript extension. Use a selector is important for initial state. It means that the initial state for a post would be what we declare in initial state in post slice. in post slice. And use the selector, take that state in this variable post, and from that variable it is array. From that variable we use method map of array to configure our HTML structure with data. This is a React Redux Tank application. Here we have tank function. Example before, 454, is application without tank, because use data only in memory of client, in memory of browser. Don't get data from outside, from mock server. And because of that, all what we adding and update adding, all what we adding to initial state, it will be lose when we switch off, when we close application. Here is Redux, React Redux application who take data from a mock server, and because of that need middleware. I somewhere read that it is only author of middleware create with only 53 statement row of code, and for us we use of that only tank function to write, and we have tank function is part of that middleware, because Redux don't understand, cannot communicate with the asynchronous process, only communicate with synchronous process. And when we must go out to server, outside, side effect, we use that middleware, part of what is tank function. And here is post slice. Post slice here. This would be initial state. What is in post slice? Because it is all like before. Index.html, index.js, index.js. Here is there is only one state, and post. And look at provide store, wrap around root component app, and in this part we have creation initial state, because store is import post slice, and we must create state, and in that creation of Redux state, now Redux is something other application, and we must connect providers for that, connect Redux application with our React application, and Redux must create reducer, must create store. Inside that store there is a reducer. We have now only one state, post, and it means, and there must have a state post, reducer post for that post. And all that is created here, and when component, when app get to open, to render, and all other child component, at that moment we have initial state. Initial state exists, and for example, when we open posters list here, initial state would be here, use selector, select all post. It would be what we have in post slice. Look at post slice. Here it is, post slice. It will be post empty array, status idle, and error value null. It would be initial state, post list. Post list and post list need data from mock server and use effect after component did mounted, that event activate use effect, hook, and here we have this combination of logic and this dependency about what I spoke in a video before. In any case, idle initial state of post status is idle, and dispatch would be called one and one side of end door. Result is 1, and we have dispatch fetch post calling and activate only first after first rendering and never again. And all other, again, we have a list, and we use a map. We use map for we use map, method map of post, for create list in our web page. And in this situation, every post go to this component post excerpt, and in that component post excerpt we create what we need in a return structure of HTML and around fields of every post. Okay, it's all for this video. If you like it, subscribe if you need to know every next my publishing of this video. If you have friend what need a video like this, you tell them about this video. Engage. Your engagement means that our community grow, and it is the best for learning when there is more of us together learn. Thank you for watching this video. See you later.